Hi everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Black Rims. I'm Mars Girl.
I'm Josh Knight the First.
So what you're listening to right now is the beta version of what I suppose is going to evolve into somewhat of a podcast. What you might have heard last week was really more of a demo, kind of a proof of concept, just to see if we could sit down and just talk about topics that we both were knowledgeable of, and see if it was anything that anyone was even willing to listen to or found entertaining in any way, shape, or form.
So that's what this is. First off, we want to, I guess, go ahead and explain the title, Beyond the Black Rims. Both of us are in agreement that there seems to be some sort of a stigma out there in popular culture about people with geeky or nerdy interests, that they're kind of looked down upon and that they have this stigma about them.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely true. And the black rims themselves, these black-rimmed glasses sort of carry with it an image of nerdiness and geekiness that maybe isn't necessarily a positive image.
Not very flattering at the least.
And certainly not in popular culture, and the second you see them on TV or something, they're the person getting poked fun at.
So, and that'll be relevant to something we'll talk about later tonight. But what we want to show is that beyond that, there's something more to anybody with those interests.
Certainly more to us, I would imagine, and I think we have a lot more to offer people rather than just going off and listing all these different little details about a certain show and, well, in this particular episode...
oh no, I think you're incorrect. In this episode... And so on and so forth.
I think we're more fans of how things are produced and how productions of different products are coming along. And well, we want to bring that sort of thing to you and open up a far more broad sort of discussion on certain, maybe more niche topics than a lot of other people might talk about.
But still bring an intelligent dialogue with it.
Alright, so to maybe tell you guys why it is that you should be listening to us, we're going to talk a little bit about who we are and what we do. My name is Kaylin Dixon, and you may know me online further as Mars Girl, probably best known through thatguywiththeglasses.com. I mostly do animation reviews. I've lately been working on my Final Fantasy XIII series of reviews. I've got another one that will be coming out hopefully this week. I've actually just about got it fleshed out and finished, and I have quite a bit of background as far as conventions like animation and science fiction conventions are concerned, so I've got a lot of input on that. Huge fan of the Final Fantasy series. I think that's something I'm the biggest fan of, and especially its main composer, Nobuo Uematsu. So that's a lot of what my focus will be on over the course of these broadcasts.
And I'm Josh Saucedo. I also go by Josh Knight the First. I'm somewhat new to this, but my interests up until now have been movies, special effects shows, sometimes referred to as tokusatsu shows, like Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, Garo, things of that nature.
To an American audience, of course, they would further know Power Rangers,
Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, shows like that. In my personal life, I guess you would say I'm an aspiring actor. I just had an audition today for a show in town that hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll hear something back on over the weekend, or actually after the weekend is up. But what I will be bringing to the table is knowledge about those type of shows, the production aspects of certain movies, big fan of the superhero genres that are out there, anything that DC, Marvel puts out, and just that sort of knowledge and fervor for more knowledge as to how these things are made is what I will bring to the table.
So just to kind of wrap this idea up, what we're really kind of aiming for, we would like to keep these podcasts under an hour in length, because we know a lot of podcasts, people can just sit there and go on and on and on, and as nice as some of those discussions can get...
To be honest, you guys have better things to do with your nights.
So do we. So we kind of want to keep it down for the most part to just 3 topics, though we might touch on other things here and there. It'll usually be something that I'm particularly knowledgeable about, but perhaps Josh is not. Then something that he is really knowledgeable about, but maybe I'm not so much. And then something that we both have equal amount of knowledge about, or no
ignorance
knowledge,
about,
or equal amount of ignorance about. So that's kind of what we're going for today. We got 3 topics coming up today later on. Those topics being, from me, we're going to talk about the Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn beta. There was a recent blog entry that I'll discuss.
I'm going to be talking about Superhero Taisen Z, the follow-up to, as some of you might know it, the Superhero War movie that was released a few months ago, and the director and the reveal of the villains.
And to wrap it all up, we both finished watching the first episode of TBS's new reality show, King of Nerds, which I think is very relevant to this program, and something that maybe some of you might want to further discuss and maybe even keep an eye on. Who knows? But we got some other things to talk about before we hit those bullet points. Again, before we do hit those bullet points, some of you might have listened in last week when we did that sort of demo proof of concept, sort of just half-hour long, whatever that was.
And thank you for listening.
Yeah, some of you, I'm really happy that you gave it any sort of input at all. I appreciate you sticking around for it. One person here has commented on that Skylanders game, actually.
Yes, we actually bothered to look into it a little bit more this week, and I misquoted last week that the 3 packs were $15. They're actually they're $30. They're a lot more expensive than I thought they were.
Oh, well, that's to be expected when they got this RF chip in it. And,
yeah.
But the comment was that they're honestly amazed at how successful the Skylanders game is, that Spyro game that we were talking about before. So, perhaps do you think that because it's Disney who's now releasing that Disney, what's it called?
Disney Infinity.
Disney Infinity, because it's Disney, they have a better chance? Because apparently Skylanders is doing really well. Like, we were just inside Walmart just tonight, and this whole section was just blocked off.
Even last week, I walked into a Target, and you saw this. We were there to actually look up the Skylanders stuff, and sure enough, there was a dad with his 5-year-old little girl in tow, grabbed one right off the shelf, and the dad's like, okay, we'll get it for you. I mean, the demand is there, so definitely with the addition of the powerhouse that is Disney behind this sort of a game, it will sell.
Other than that, there was one other comment regarding the Final Fantasy XIII series, and that was something along the lines of somebody was pretty confident that Square Enix was fudging those the
numbers in the most popular female character poll.
Yeah, that poll that they gave to their audience, and what I was saying was, you know what? I don't doubt that. I do not doubt that Square Enix would fudge those, because something that I've heard pretty frequently is that Japanese magazines, because that's usually where those polls take place,
right.
Japanese magazines are not really produced similarly to magazines here in the West, in that we're actually, as much as we'll complain about magazine bias towards something, Japan is totally like, if it's published by like New Type has got their hands in whatever companies they want, and all they will do is make a big advertisement for all these different companies. Same with Shonen Jump. Shonen Jump's not gonna, like, there's not actual reviews. These publications...
This is opinion, that way you don't necessarily have to prove where the opinion came from.
Exactly. So, you know what? I totally am in agreement with the person who said that they likely think that those numbers were fudged, and I agree with you with the comment you said about, well, Lightning is just being pushed to the forefront,
right.
Therefore that's exactly why people are kind of drawn to her, because they can't...
It's basic marketing. It's not so much that when you go to the store, you want Fruit Loops. It's the fact that there's a giant Fruit Loops display when you walk in that makes you think, you know what, I want Fruit Loops.
Yeah, it's sort of an impulse buy sort of a deal.
Right.
That's why marketing works the way it does in just grocery stores. You go up to the line and you didn't want a stick of gum before you left, but suddenly there's a stick of gum right there within arm's reach, and guess what? It's only like 85 cents. So,
yeah, but this particular stick of gum, I mean, yeah, it's pink, but it just looks like this other stick of gum I saw a couple of rows back.
Yeah, but you can get it right now.
Well, I guess I should get it then. It's right here.
So, really...
I guess that leads into your first topic,
Actually,
then.
yeah, because now that leads into my first topic of Final Fantasy XIV, or Realm Reborn. The alpha ended several weeks back in early January, and I was fortunate enough to be in the alpha, and I've got my fingers crossed that I'll get into the beta as well.
I'm hoping you get into the beta too, because I want to crack at that as well.
I would really like to see, because finally, Final Fantasy XIV is going to have its chance on the PlayStation 3, which is something that they were saying for 2 years. Oh, it's coming! It's coming to the PlayStation 3, you guys just gotta wait. And, people were waiting, and people were really disappointed. Now, granted, I liked Final Fantasy XIV in its original iteration, and I know I'm one of the incredibly few people who did. But, you know what? I don't care. It was okay. And, but admittedly, this beta has proven to me that it could be better. That is, I had no doubt in my mind from the beginning that 14 could have always been better. It wasn't the perfect game ever. But, so now we're about to get into the beta, and just this past week there have been a couple of new blogs from the developers. The most recent one has shown us progress shots of Shiva, actually, because summons were sort of supposed to be a thing a lot earlier, and then it didn't happen, but now finally we're getting them. So I couldn't tell that this was supposed to be Shiva at first, right? I've got this photo up right now that I'm looking at, and, she just looked like some skank. I really couldn't tell until they said at the bottom, after all this teasing, that it's undeniable proof that this can be none other than Shiva! So...
Well, you see, I'm looking at it, and it looks to me like whatever Shiva this is that's going to be in 14 looks like this other Shiva. Is it the same thing? It just looks like a color swap on certain body parts. That's the only difference.
A color swap on what? From what? From this is, I'm looking at the original character artwork.
Right.
And then
and here they've just added a little bit more reddish pink.
And here I scroll up, and they've got these progress shots already pre-rendered. But realize this is not a finished product. Okay.
I can still see where it came from, is what I'm saying.
Oh, is that the point you're trying to make?
Yeah,
she otherwise looks exactly the same, just some colors are off. In fact, I imagine her looking far more icy in the end result.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Once we get a final render, they'll add the icicle-like skin and all that.
And,
that we're so used to seeing.
Originally, when I first looked at this, I didn't like it. I didn't know what she was gonna be. And then I sat there and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? She's not any more naked than Shiva ever was in any other iteration of Final Fantasy ever. So...
You know what she's not?
What?
A summon as a motorcycle.
Thank God. The last thing we need is summons that turn into motorcycles, or cars, or a guy that becomes a horse who's supposed to ride that horse, not be that horse. We just don't need transforming summons. We also don't need two Shivas that transform together into one Shiva on a motorcycle, or as a motorcycle.
We must combine the body.
I do not want to do that.
No, you don't.
No. Other than that, they haven't really discussed a whole heck of a lot about the beta itself. They released what the transition period from daytime into nighttime looks like. It's pretty. I mean, it doesn't tell us anything, though they do tease this one thing, which is funny because it at least references Final Fantasy XI, if not Final Fantasy XIV, and I quote, but will facing north by northeast at 2:45 a.m. while the moon is waning crescent result in a 27% increase in your chances to synthesize high-quality mithril ingots? That is the real question. And, yeah, that's the joke, because in Final Fantasy XI, synthesizing crafting items and stuff, like armor and weapons and cooking and all these different things, you had to be so specific, standing in a certain place, facing a certain direction on a certain day, a certain day of the week, an in-game day of the week, not the real day of the week, during a certain season in-game or during certain weather conditions would oh so slightly change the results of what you were going to synthesize. Like, it was crazy, and it was so easy to fail. Like, you would think you were doing everything right,
so
and
let me get this straight. I'm trying to make a bowl of cereal here.
Okay.
Can I just make a bowl of cereal? It is right now. It's 8:08 on a Thursday. Can I make a bowl of cereal right now?
Well, you could try, and you might be able to do it, but you would have a far better likelihood of succeeding and not breaking all of your materials in the process if you were facing a certain direction on a rainy day near the lake, while the sun was coming up.
On Monday.
On Monday, or whatever. I forget the names of the days of the week in the game, but you get the idea.
So you're saying I shouldn't have cereal right now?
I mean, you could try. It's just that you might shatter the bowl and crush the Cheerios, and
then why even bother trying?
Then you have to go and gather a new bowl and new cereal.
But I already bought a bowl.
No, you have to go get a new bowl because it exploded when you tried to make it.
Stupid. I don't want to do it anymore.
And that's why I did not craft in Final Fantasy XI, and I left that up to friends who did not charge me as much in the game for their products. But that's I'm kind of hoping that that's not a thing in 14. I'm hoping that their tongue-in-cheek humor there insinuates, no, we're not gonna do that BS again. I'm really hoping. So I don't entirely know when exactly the beta is, but I'm hoping to get in it, especially since I'm a Legacy member, and they've proved, or they have stated that Legacy members will get into the beta, so just gotta wait and see, and if I get in, I unfortunately can't tell you guys, so I will just be quiet when it happens.
She will just wink, and you will have to assume that she winked during this podcast.
I'm not gonna do that, though, because they haven't sent out
I mean when it happens,
emails. Okay. I think I'm done.
Alright, then that means it's my turn. What I'm gonna be talking about here is the sequel to this past year's Superhero War. This was a compilation movie bringing together two very large series franchises over in Japan, Kamen Rider and Super Sentai, which usually gets brought over here every year as Power Rangers, or some form of Power Rangers. This is something that I was sitting on for a while, and now that they've announced the director being the same guy who did it last time, I'm a little bit reserved about this because, admittedly, while my inner child was happy to have watched the first movie, hey, I get to see my favorite heroes on the screen at the same time, and they're fighting bad guys, by that same token, I do not accept the means by which they were put on the screen. And now, with this coming movie, we're adding a third franchise to the mix, the Space Sheriffs, which a lot of people don't really know about or are just learning about recently. Back in Japan, decades ago, there used to be three major franchises. There were Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, and what were known as the Metal Heroes. The heads of the Metal Heroes were these guys called Space Sheriffs, which are basically what they sound like.
Of course, when you say three major franchises, you're just talking about Toei.
Yeah, and, from the company Toei, these three major children's show franchises.
Because Ultraman I would have included as major franchise. However, it's not Toei, it's, dang, what is name of company? I totally knew at one, Tsurubaya.
Tsurubaya, yeah. But as far as dominance in, say, like the 80s went, they were up there. Ultraman, of course, has had their time come and go, and they're still going on strong with the things they're doing with Ultraman Zero.
But anyway, please continue.
But even then, if this movie does good, I wouldn't doubt that maybe next year the third movie in this series wouldn't include Ultraman. That's a possibility in my mind. I don't know if the two companies have anything to say about that.
That's hard because it's happened before.
There was a small movie that was kind of tongue-in-cheek between Kamen Rider 1 and Ultraman, the original Ultraman, both teaming up to fight a monster, and
And Kamen Rider got really, really big.
Yes, and they both
L-beamed.
And Rider kicked at the same time to defeat the monster, and kids were happy.
I don't know, I have my doubts that it would happen again. I mean, Surabaya is apparently a difficult company to talk to rights about. But anyway, you've got a different topic going on.
The thing about this is that a lot of people that I've talked to are a bit worried that this will be more of the same, in that some people just... Really what I've seen is that it falls into two categories of people that I've talked to about the superhero war. One is that they absolutely loved it. They loved everything, being there on screen at once.
And it's as simple as that?
It's as simple as that. And two, they can't believe that Toei got away with what they did because of the shoestring plot that they gave us of these different iterations of Zangyok, the villain group from Gokaiger, and the reformed Shocker from any of the Kamen Rider series back together.
The villain series from the Kamen Rider series, the most well-known, oldest.
Yes. And now in this new movie, it was revealed that the overarching villain group will be known as Space Shocker. Now, the thing about this is that Shocker is an old trope going back to the original series. Throughout the course of the franchise, the name Shocker has been reused over and over again with another little thing in front. First there was Shocker, then there was Gel Shocker, then Neo Shocker, Super Shocker, so on and so forth down the line, and now we have Space Shocker, and it's like, how many more Shockers can we have out there? Like Pepsi, Sea Shocker,
Umi Shocker.
Yeah, Pepsi presents Shocker, so on and so forth down the line. It's like, can we just try coming up with something original here?
So you're talking about these two different groups, these two different classes of people who either enjoy or don't enjoy.
Yes.
Like, let me put it this way: we watched it.
Yes, we both saw it.
Or
to be specific, I saw it. You fell asleep.
I was bored. I was bored out of my skull, and I fell asleep. And then I woke up at the end, and I was like, "Oh, finally! Here's the part that I cared about."
Right.
And even that was kind of like, well, all the cool characters are on screen at once, but they're doing kind of dumb things.
Well, because here's the thing about that. The plot of the first one involves Kamen Rider Decade working alongside the Kamen Rider villains to destroy Captain Marvelous, Gokai Red, who has allied himself with all of these Super Sentai villains to destroy the other group. And at first it's like, okay, when did either side come to that agreement? Hey, we're enemies in our respective universes, but we're gonna go defeat the other guys. And this is all to the effect of the good guys pretending to be bad guys. Try and follow me on this. The good guys pretending to be bad guys pretended to be bad to stop the bad guys from doing a bad thing. So in order to do that, they helped them be bad.
What really drove me to sleep, though, was the fact that everybody was like, "Why are we doing this?" Like they say
they were outright asking, "Why are we doing this? Because we can't understand why you're doing this." And even then, they didn't give a good excuse. The excuse they give at the end is, "We knew you were gonna, both of you evil organizations were gonna team up against us, so we had to team up with you before you teamed up against us, so we could get the one up on you." And it's like, well, why didn't you just fight them?
Well, no, the point I was trying to make was everybody throughout about 75% of that movie is going, "Why are we doing this?
Right.
Why is this happening?" And if they don't know why any of it is happening, then all I see is just stuff on the screen cluttering and making a mess and stuff, and if they don't know or care what's going on, then I don't know or care what's going on. And since that was 75% of the movie, then I was like, alright, I'm just gonna sleep until something cool happens and I get an answer.
The movie works like this. It's pretty much opening fights, Daiki, Kamen Rider D End, Gokai Blue, Gokai Green, what's-her-face from O's, walking around trying to figure out why people are dying and why Marvelous and Decade are fighting each other. Superfluous inclusion of Den-O, and then the final 30-minute fight scene. And that's the movie right there. And that's with the plot. Because that's all you're given, is set piece, talking about why we're doing this, set piece, talking about why we're doing this, big gap of time, well, we have to meet up with the Den-O people because, surprise, Japan still loves Den-O, and then the fight scene, and it's like, I don't feel like I want to see the fight scene, but I don't think the journey to get here was worth it. And now that we're adding a third group to the mix with the Space Sheriffs, who, mind you, have just been resurrected over this past year, thanks to the crossovers between Space Sheriff Gavan and the Gokaigers, I don't know that it's going to be any better, because that's just mucking up the story even worse.
Well, so to narrow it down, at least for that last movie, what you're saying, to translate for people who have not seen these things and don't know what we're talking about, these characters were shoehorned together in a story that didn't matter, also that you can get to the part at the end that you care about, leaving you thinking, well, why didn't they just leave the cool part and just kind of release it like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Just get to the cool flashy part where all your favorite people are on screen fighting all at once, doing all the cool things. Like, I can understand that. I can appreciate that. Like, even, like, we've had this discussion, you and I, regarding Kamen Rider Decade,
right,
which I do not think is a good program at all. However, I can understand the desire to see all of these characters on screen at once doing a cool thing. But it's like, when you try and shoehorn this story that's really, really bad and not well fleshed out and not well told, and in the end you come up with all these different other possible scenarios, and even the story doesn't know what it's trying to tell,
right,
then it's like, then, you know what, just forget all that, and just give me everybody on screen at once doing cool things.
I'll make this comparison right here. And I think you'll see where I'm coming from, it's the difference in approach between what you would believe Final Fantasy VII Advent Children was,
I was about to bring up
and
Advent
what
Children.
the Avengers is. And hear what I'm saying on this. You believe, and you still hold to this very hard, that Advent Children was this mishmash story that didn't need to be told to get to a point where, okay, let me just see these characters that I want to see together on screen again, do the flashy thing.
Absolutely. I will briefly explain, just real briefly, that most of the story of Advent Children didn't need to happen, and it all leads up to this end part where all the characters that you had in your party come back into whatever this town is that I don't care about at the end, and then this BS excuse to bring Sephiroth comes up, and that's what everybody wanted to see, was Cloud fight Sephiroth one more time in this really big, badass, CG rendered beautiful fight. And the movie is gorgeous, okay? The movie is absolutely gorgeous, but the story weaving up to that end point was bogus. Completely and utterly bogus.
Now, to the opposite end, we have the Avengers. A story where, up until that end point, some people are like, well, yeah, it was all Flash, but if you think about it, Joss Whedon, I always mispronounce his name. Joss Whedon did, in my opinion, an amazing job weaving these stories with these characters together that, okay, this is why he's here, this is why she's fighting, this is why he wants revenge. That way, by the end, when we get to the giant fight scene that everybody's hoping for, and you see all these characters lining up and posing, getting ready for battle, you feel that emotional weight with, yes, there's a reason why we're here, and there's a reason it's going to be more satisfying to watch this fight.
I think the only complaint that I had is that, for me, it came so close to fulfilling that, but it is still very hard to do when you have that broad of a cast of characters, and then the only recourse you have is to go watch each of those characters' individual movies before coming in to watch the Avengers, which, I did, and so I appreciated it. I liked it, and I felt like all the characters were well explained, but say you had not watched everyone's previous movies, then you probably wouldn't care. It was a little harder to care about Hawkeye and Black Widow for me.
Because Black Widow, you got some of it in Iron Man 2. Admittedly, Hawkeye, this was his first shot, aside from his, 3 lines in Thor.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies over here, unless you're like me, who happens to be a big fan of this stuff, unless you're familiar with at least 3 or 4 major series: Decade, Foze, Go Kaigers, and Go Busters. just the shows that within a couple of years, 4 years, I think, at that point, if you were familiar with those 4 shows, you had to be at least familiar with those 4 shows to care at all about these characters. On top of that, we're talking about the whole franchise as a whole. So we're also bringing back, Jetman. We're talking about Black, Kuga, Geki Ranger, all these other characters thrown in. So for older fans who are more versed in this sort of things, yes, it was a payoff to see all these people back on screen again. I've heard some fans compliment the fact that they let certain teams team up again that were showing at the same time, like Geki Ranger and Den-O, Kiba and Go-Onger, so on and so forth like that. And I guess what I'm saying to wrap that up is that for this next go-around with Super Hero War Z, because we're adding another spoon to the pot, basically, with the space sheriffs, definitely more attention should be given to not let it become this very loosely based attempt to sell me something and give me a story that I care about.
It really just sounds like they're throwing in whatever they can and just seeing what sticks. And
okay, I'll talk to that for a second.
Well, to finish, what I'm thinking of is that I'm concerned that you throw in so much that how can you possibly make a story out of it, because there's too much in there that you can't give proper focus to anybody at that point.
Here's a prime example right here. Go-Ongers versus Galvan. Good story. Very good story. Very well choreographed, actually. And it focused solely on the original actor for Galvan, who has also played 2 other Super Sentai roles. He brought back to the story a lot of older fans that were happy to see this guy, Retsu, back in action again. And then the success of that movie led to the revival of the Space Sheriffs in this latest movie, Space Sheriff Galvan the movie, where they passed down the torch to a new Galvan. And they also bothered to recast for Scheider and Charivan, the 2 other Space Sheriffs that came after that.
Okay, what are we talking about at this point?
What I'm saying is, Gokaiger vs. Galvan, to get to the point, was a test to see whether or not they could resurrect the Metal Heroes. Quite similarly, Toei, through Kamen Rider movies, have been bringing back iterations of older characters, Potrine, Inazuman, Kyodain, Skydain, which were all old, you wouldn't even know them unless you were born in the 70s, shows to see, well, can we make a buck off this? And really it is that idea of throwing something out there to see if it sticks. But doing that is a very, very risky move, and it seems that that's more or less the idea they're going with this new movie.
The end?
The end.
Okay. Thank you. I don't think we
You warned him it was going to be niche. I got into it.
Yeah, well, I think it's necessary. We didn't nearly talk about my topic as in-depth as that, just because I thought we were sticking directly to the news article. I mean, I could certainly go on and on about MMORPGs.
Oh, no, I've heard you go on about this, about 14 and how much you want to fight again in this new realm that has apparently been reborn.
But we don't have to further talk about that at this given moment in time.
So we're going to move on to our final topic for the evening, which is kind of interesting given the title that we decided to go with for the show, Beyond the Black Rims. We move to TBS's new reality show, King of the Nerds, which just started airing last week.
And I was so super concerned about it because, 1, it's a reality show, blah, and 2, I'm sure a number of you may at least be somewhat familiar with PlayStation Network's The Tester, which, is not a television-aired reality program, but it's gone on for a couple years now through PlayStation Network. Some of you might even be familiar with a co-producer of mine from back in the past, 8-Bit Mickey, who made it on in, I think that was that season 1 or season 2? I can't rightly remember, but the following year, they had Ego Raptor on. I think a lot more people were on board the season that Ego Raptor was on.
I know we were up until he got kicked off.
That was me and 8-Bit Mickey also. So the most popular characters that got voted into the show, they both got nixed on episode 3. Mm-hmm. Like, that was, they don't want the popular people to continue through. No, absolutely not. They want it spun in a certain way. So I was especially concerned about this program. And, I think in some cases, it's founded. It makes sense that I'm concerned about it.
Well, I can see why, because, like you said, 1, it's a reality show. 2, it's a reality show that kind of, suffice to say, is in our interests and right up our alley. So we go into this thing very wary of, okay, who are these people that they have representing the title that they're giving them of nerd? And we've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 contestants. And we went down the row of each of them, what our initial impression was, and we read up on their bios. Luckily, TBS.com has them all there for you to verify. And there were some of them that stuck out right off the bat as, okay, you are, just visually, we know you're legit.
And some of them we still had to kind of second guess, like, are you really a nerd, or do you just really want attention? Or are you a plant that TBS put in there? Because, reality shows do that.
I'll admit, before the season of the test, I'd never seen the tester before the season that Ego Raptor was on there. I was a fan of Ego Raptor's videos, and that's what got me to watch.
Yeah, that's what got everybody to watch.
But here's the thing, watching it, I know reality shows, I can recognize acting when acting happens. You cannot tell me that some of those contestants on there weren't plants. They were just pretending.
Oh no! In fact, they had been interviewed. Some of them after they got eliminated from the show, and some of them said, "Yeah, I was casted. I
freaking knew it. I knew it."
Yeah, at least 1 or 2 of them.
So then, based off that, some of these guys have to be plants.
Oh, some of them absolutely have to be plants.
Let's just throw it out there. Who's a plant to you here?
I'm not entirely certain. I believe that this Danielle girl, the pink-haired, somewhat cute girl, I actually do believe she's a blogger and all. I don't know what she blogs. I'd be very interested in seeing for myself what exactly she blogs. The problem is, in this first episode, I didn't get to see proof of exactly how nerdy she really is, so she is very difficult for me to tell. But it also kind of bothered me when a person has to say, well, people just look at me and they don't believe that I'm actually nerdy, blah, blah, blah. Like, when you have to say that, something inside me goes, you're having to defend yourself.
Yeah, you're having to validate yourself.
Yeah. Her, at least. I believe that Celeste is a pro gamer, and we're sitting there watching her do a Rubik's Cube, so I believe
Rubik's Cube is neither here nor there. I mean, freaking Will Smith can solve a Rubik's Cube. And is he classified as nerdy?
Maybe a little. I don't know. I don't know him personally.
Well, you should work on that. To the opposite end, we've also got this girl who apparently got picked last in the competition, Alana, and right off the bat, it's like, no, you're legit. We know you're a nerd.
Yeah.
And then the more they put her on screen, the more that is emphasized in the way she talks and the way her mannerisms are around the other contestants.
Before we get too much farther, I kind of want to put that, as we speak about this black rim glasses sort of phenomenon, man, it just really bothers me that, that there is still this image. I don't necessarily feel like this show is a good thing for the nerd image.
No.
Just because they're making a show, a performance out of these people who are not necessarily socially, they're kind of socially inept,
I would say a little more obviously socially inept.
Yeah, and it really bothers me that there's still this this idea that the word geek or nerd, like, they're sitting there trying to take it back, and to me, when they sit there and try and take it back, they just make themselves look all the more worse. So as they're announcing each contestant as they individually walk on screen, I get the secondhand embarrassment initially, right?
Now, speaking to, again, that whole thing of the glasses, you look at the shots of all of them, which one of them is wearing the stereotypical... Now, mind you, 6 out of 11 contestants do wear glasses, but which one of them is wearing the stereotypical black rim glasses?
The cute, adorable, pink-haired Danielle, the one that I'm mostly concerned, I'm on the fence about whether she's legit. However,
actually, both pink-haired contestants, her and the guy, John.
They're not nearly as thick, though. Alana
No, I'm saying he's the one I also don't trust as far as the guys are concerned as being what I would consider legit nerd.
Well, he's sitting there talking about his interests and what he's good at, right?
Right.
And, on the show, I mean, they got character bios here on the website and all. However, the things he's talking about, like, I like things that rock. And I'm like, well, it's not really nerdy. You're kind of a mosh pit sort of a guy. I'm not seeing it yet. I mean, there's still more show to go. The hosts, do you know what those hosts did?
They were in the original Revenge of the Nerds movie.
That's right. And man, they've aged.
Yeah, they've aged.
And again, that just sort of further pushes that really old stereotyped idea of what a nerd is, because Revenge of the Nerds is very much that.
Yeah. Well, it very much pushed it to the forefront as far as pop culture in the 80s was concerned.
And for some reason, pop culture still sort of holds on to that stigma of what a nerd is. Even Congress doesn't know what a nerd is. They're like, get the nerds in here to help us fix our internet laws, and that's kind of the imagery they're going with. So, initially, yeah, I was afraid, and I was embarrassed, and I didn't know what to think about it. But I'm gonna be honest with you, as the game progressed, as a game, I don't dislike this show, because the tasks they had them do absolutely made sense. Because, as we're sitting there watching the tester...
Right. It was very... Well, obviously, yeah, because of it being on the network it's on. It's very PlayStation-centric.
Well, yeah, it's PlayStation-centric, but it's like, okay, we're going to do a task that's based on this video game. Now go do this physical thing that has nothing to do with this video game.
Right.
So you're sitting there, like, everybody makes the comments, what does this have to do with being a video game tester? Like, none of the tasks lead you to believe that this person is good at being a gameplay tester, which, by the way, is the crappiest job in the video game industry. But nonetheless, this game show, however, there were 2 specific tasks that came up in the show, one of which was picking teams.
Right.
And I will speak to the fact that, as at least being the outsider most of my young life, I know what it's like to be picked last constantly and consistently. And so that's exactly what they were coming up with, because there was an odd number of players.
Now, the thing about that was commented on between us watching this episode is that, as opposed to any other reality show, game show type setup, because these people are more versed in strategy, RPGs, video games, that they were treating it very much like a game.
Which
they
is
were looking
great.
At stats.
Which is absolutely great. However, unlike other reality shows, because these are kind of socially awkward people who are just in it to play the game, there was no making relationships going on.
There was making alliances, which is not the same thing as making friends.
No, I absolutely didn't see friendships start to bud and develop at all. Every time they went to show a shot of somebody talking about something, it was about strategy, or it was about, oh man, the house is so cool.
Okay, this house, alright, which they have dubbed Nerdvana.
This house.
Screw this house. They did not spend more than $1,000, $2,000 on this house. We're looking at the stuff lying around in this house, and haha, I get the joke that they have the Throne of Games, Game of Thrones, I get it. But I'm looking at some of the like statues and figures they have around in that house, and me being me, I can look at it and like, I know that's a Hot Toys Batman figure. That's not worth more than $150. Like you got, and they're so sparsely put throughout the house. They got sponsorship from Radio Shack, and basically that doesn't mean they spent money on Radio Shack. That means Radio Shack is happy to have a paycheck.
Yeah.
Because really, who goes to Radio Shack anymore?
Of course, for me, it just made me mad to see that they were playing Dance Central, but they weren't really playing Dance Central. Dance Central was playing on the TV,
and they were like patching.
They were cabbage patching and Tootsie rolling or something. They weren't doing what was on screen. That's like every time you DDR solo, and then somebody gets up on the player 2 mat who has never seen DDR in their life, and they just start doing whatever because they think that they're being funny, and you're sitting there going, "You are interrupting me! Stop it! Go away!"
I actually use the example of the movie Grandma's Boy, when Nick Swardson goes up against somebody in DDR, and you can see the pattern clearly on the screen, but he's there just spazzing out and supposedly getting perfect.
No, you're not!
No! You are not playing the game! Don't try lying to me! You made this movie centered around a nerdy thing, developing games here, and you're trying to tell me this is how you play No! No! You can't dance Max 300 and tell me it's AM3P. It's not the same thing.
Well. Anyway, to continue actually about the show,
but
I'm sorry,
I digress.
so tangented. I'm sorry, that's my fault. So they split these teams, right? And what was really quite ingenious, I believe, was that there was the one person left over, and then they're like, well, guess what? You now have all the power, you one left over, Alana, and now she had the power to choose which team was the safe team.
Yes, which one was going to escape elimination for that week.
And then she got added to a team, so despite the fact that it looked like at first she was gonna be all, oh, I'm sad and I'm going home just because I'm not popular. Wrong! Man, I liked that. I gotta say I liked that.
Yeah, I had to applaud that. And then we had the two team captains, Ivan and Genevieve.
Of course, their team captainness really didn't mean much in the end.
Right.
Solely because they were the first two people to pick their teammates,
right.
But they didn't continue to pick their teammates. The person that they picked then picked the next teammate, and then so on down the line.
Right.
So after that, one of those teams, specifically the blue team, it was down to two members of that team who were going to have to face off against each other in some unknown challenge to see which one of them were going home.
That was Hendrik and John.
Yeah, they both got voted in to battle against each other.
Well, Hendrik volunteered.
Well, yeah, because
he got cocky.
Yeah, his hubris kind of
hubris.
He was just like, I want a challenge, and he sounded the most like the stereotypical kind of nerd out of everybody.
Admittedly, I don't know if this is unfair to say, but with the exception of maybe the Joshua guy and John, I believe that those guys are nerds.
Most of the dudes, yeah, I believe it. But this Hendrik guy, he was like, well, yeah, I want to say that I had a challenge. I think I'll just go ahead and, you guys vote for me. It's cool. And then it turned out that the challenge was chess and he sucked at it.
Yeah. Even with the help of Alana, who was like, oh, I was in chess club, I can help you. And then she allows him to make two stupid moves. They get him checkmated and thereby eliminated him.
Which is going to make her look even worse, because not only was she picked dead last,
right,
but she also led her teammate to failure,
right,
and to get eliminated. So
in general, nobody seemed to be talking to her.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that she will be either she'll be the next one that they aim for, or they're going to be like, we need to keep her so that she is easy prey in the final rounds. Other than that, kind of listening to a lot of them talk throughout it also was embarrassing at some points.
Yeah.
Like some people who are like, you're stupid because you smoke. What kind of a smart person smokes? Which, I agree that smoking is dumb, but I mean, come on, that's a stupid comment.
Yeah.
And then the people who are like, wow, this house is so cool.
Well, then,
I'm sitting there going, I do not believe you. I believe that you were told to like this house for the sake of making this nerd show sound cooler than it actually is.
Yeah. And then it's a personal thing for me. And hear me out when I say this. Liking Batman does not make you a nerd. Liking Batman means you are intelligent enough to like Batman.
Yeah, I suppose that's not really a qualifying, but unless Alana's got, like, so much knowledge of all the comic series and every
like,
animated...
you can tell me when Damian was conceived, and you can tell me the exact date that Dick decided to switch over and become Nightwing, and every last bit, like, when Alfred's birthday is, things like that. If you can tell me that, then okay. Then that ups your cred. But just saying I like Batman or wearing a Batman t-shirt does not solidify you as a nerd. That means you like Batman.
Yeah, well, you know, for casting purposes, they had to get somebody who was just sort of, in there. I'm sure she has a great personality. But for the sake of a game show...
You said that with a straight face. I'm surprised.
For the sake of a game show, yeah, this made me a little sad. I don't know how much there is left to...
Well, admittedly, we'll watch the next episode. We'll probably keep up with
which
this
I believe was airing tonight, right?
Yes, tonight. Probably right now as we're filming this.
We'll pick it up somewhere.
Yeah. But we'll let you guys know how that goes down in subsequent weeks, I guess.
Other than that, I don't think there's a lot more that we need to talk about. The only things I necessarily wanted to let you guys know is that, yes, this is still just the beta, and then the next thing we make is going to officially be episode 1. I would like to have further, like, nice intro music or audio cues or whatever. Maybe we'll go hunting for some audio stuff.
Yeah, we can probably scrounge up something.
Or maybe somebody, if some people are composer geeks, you know?
Yes.
If somebody would like to donate just short little scrap pieces here or there, certainly you can send it our way. And then further later on down the line, I would eventually like to make this a live show. I'm not prepared to do that right away. I'm sure we could do it right away, but I think we need to build up to something anyway. And once that happens, maybe we'll have some additional content for people listening in live over at our Twitch channel. But until then, it's going to remain on YouTube. I'll try to get some MP3 links up in case you do, in fact, want to iPod this, considering it's a podcast.
Right.
I think that would be intelligent.
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Other than that, is there anything
Listen
else?
to audio? What a concept.
Other than that, I do want to make this weekly, so I'm gonna say every Thursday evening, huh?
Yeah, every Thursday evening we'll record this and probably have it up by Friday.
At the latest by Friday.
Yeah.
So, until next week, I suppose. I guess
Here's
we're
hoping.
done. We managed to do this in under an hour, and I would love to keep it that way. So, until next week, I'm Mars Girl.
I'm Josh Knight the First.
And thanks for listening in to Beyond the Black Rims. Take care, you guys.
We'll see you next time.